Yo, what's up guys, that's me, I'm back, and today, I haven't done one of these videos like ever, and a lot of people, YouTubers do it, but you never really seen somebody, you know, like me, do it, so I thought I would do a class review today. And today we're going over the Mage. This is my 110 Mage. I kept it 110 first of all because I boosted it and I never played it really. I mean, I did play it from 100 to 110, but that's about it. And I'm saving it until my mom gets the thing. Here, I'm gonna change my name to Twilight Vanquisher. Anyways, so today we'll be going over the Mage, and now this is just for BFA. I'm not going to really explain for way earlier levels. This is only for endgame-ish. So yeah, so what we're going over is, this is right before we get the Heart of Azeroth. As you can see, I have the Understone Gore, whatever. Yeah, so we will be explaining talents, rotations, specs, just everything you need to, you know, play a mage. So first we'll be going over the talents for the Arcane Mage. So the Arcane Mage has a good selection of talents, and I'm not going over the PvP talents because usually no one cares about PvP anyways. So first of all, on the level 15 tier, you're probably going to want to go with a rule of threes, because when you gain a third arcane charge, the cost of your next arcane blast or arcane missiles is reduced by 100%, which technically means you don't use any mana. And so these are the of course the arcane charges and stuff. I wouldn't recommend Arcane Familiar. It's just like a little thing. Pew pew. Amplification is when clear casting arcane missiles fires one additional missile. It's really not good. Next, you have about two options here. You have Slipstream, which clear casting arcane missiles can be channeled while moving, and Evocation can be channeled while moving, which is basically your mana regeneration, basically. You also can have Shimmer, replaces Blink, and teleports you 20 hours forward unless something is in the way, unaffected by the global cooldown, and castable while casting. So basically what that means is you can cast an ability, and if you need to, you can use Shimmer, use one of its charge, and go forward, and then you can still be casting that ability. Level 45. Now, I've seen some people and like noobs, not noobs, I shouldn't say that, like newer players go with a cooler type of talent usually than this one, but I suggest to do Rune of Power. Places a Rune of Power on the ground for 10 seconds, which increases your spell damage by 40%. That is really good, especially when you're thinking about the like mana. Like, your abilities cost a lot of mana, and you don't want to get you want to use your abilities the most, put it out as best and fast as you can. And Rune of Power increases the damage by 40%, which is nearly half of what it does. So if it did 1,000, it would do like 1,400 damage. And you can stand in it within 8 yards, so it's about like, I'll just show you what it looks like right there. So it gets going through about here. Now, here you really have two options for level 60. I would recommend, for me, just that's me, Resonance, which is Arcane Barrage deals 10 increased damage per target it hits, because it like splits and it does 10% more damage, which damage is always good. And there's also Charged Up, which, I mean, it's good, but it's really good, kind of, for especially like this kind of thing is talking usually about Arcane Barrage, because you only gonna use Arcane Barrage for like your runic, or not runic, arcane charges. Charge Up just gives you a boost of a good a lot of damage. And Supernova I would not recommend. It's just like a ability that barely does any damage, and it's not good. Now here, really, I think like the only thing that's good is Chrono Shift, which is Arcane Barrage slows enemies by 50%, increases your movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds. It's mostly good for PvP and situations where you're about to die, but also very good for PvP is also Ring of Frost. Summons Ring of Frost for 10 seconds at the target location. Enemies entering the ring are incapacitated for 10 seconds. Limits 10 targets. It's good for PvP, especially for a Temple of Katmagu, because it'll just like, if you just set it right in the middle, everyone will run into it. Or, yeah. Now 90, you really have only one touch, or not one choice here, which is I mean, you have two choices really. Touch of the Magi. Arcane Blast deals 10 increased has a 10 increased chance to apply Touch of the Magi, accumulating 50% of the damage you deal to the target for 8 seconds, and exploding that amount of arcane damage to the target and nearby enemies. So it's kind of like an AoE effect, sort of, but it still does good damage. And Reverberate. If Arcane Explosion, which is your AoE attack, hits at least 3 targets, has a 40% chance to generate an extra arcane charge, which is always good for Arcane Blast or Arcane Barrage map. And on 100, usually all of these are good. I went overpowered because Arcane Power now increases damage by 60%, reduces mana cost by 60%, and Arcane Power Heroes, for 10 seconds you deal 60% more spell damage, and your spells cost 60 less mana. And so it used to be something else. Hold on, let's go like Timely Anomaly. For 10 seconds you deal 30% damage. Yeah, it basically doubles. And now Time Anomaly, you at any moment you have a chance to gain Arcane Power for 8 seconds, gain Evocation for 1 second, or gain 4 arcane charges. Now it's good in some situations, like in raids when you have long boss fights. You either get one of these good abilities, but when you're like kind of world questing or like killing mobs in the world, it's not that good. Now Arcane Orb is, it's one of the most big boy damage abilities out there. Launches an Arcane Orb forward from your position, traveling up to 40 yards, dealing 1,300 arcane damage to the enemies and enemies it passes through. Grants 1 arcane charge when cast and every time it deals damage. Now this talent is good for a lot of situations, but if you, I'm not in combat. Oh wow, he's showing off, dude. Oh, he has good essences. Nice. You can't choose a talent choice when the ability is... Okay, buddy. It's not on cooldown anymore. Oh no, touch the magic. Okay. now we're moving on to playstyle. So what you're gonna want to do first is you're here. You're targeting your enemy. You're gonna want to place down Rune of Power, right? Then you're gonna want to cast Arcane Blast until you reach 4, and then you're gonna want to cast Arcane Missiles, and then that ability, and then once that gets down, then you want to go put on your Prismatic Barrier because they're probably gonna attack you by now. Then get your Presence of Mind, causes your next 2 Arcane Blasts to be instant cast. Put down your Rune of Power again, and then put down your Arcane Power, and then place those 2 down, and then Arcane Missiles, then another Arcane Blast, then your Arcane Barrage, and then you keep on doing that for a while until you kind of, you know, destroy your enemy. And then once that happens, you can kind of go like anytime you want, like that, and do it over and over and over again. But make sure you keep Rune of Power down most times you're hitting something, because the more damage you deal with your abilities, of course the faster the enemy goes down, the more DPS you do. And then let's just cast Arcane Missiles for a while. And once it shows up with a proc too, not only can you move, but you can not only can you move because of your talent, but it's also free cast. And once it gets down to less mana than this, of course, I'm just gonna try to waste a lot of mana. Alright, once you do this, then you're gonna want to put down your evocation. While your evocation's going, I forgot Arcane Intellect, but that doesn't really matter that much. And I forgot to put down Rune of Power, but that's fine. Now Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage, Arcane Missiles again, and if it procs, Arcane Missiles one more time. Then Arcane Blast, Rune of Power, Presence of Mind, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage, Arcane Missiles, Arcane Power, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, boom, 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 and then procs. Then I wouldn't really do Time Warp in case you're just trying to put down a lot of damage, but just do that, boom, put down your Rune of Power, Arcane Blast, boom, 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 Arcane Missiles, boom, 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 boom. So it's basically, this class is kind of good if you don't really like to be like casting that much. The Arcane Blast is the only like ability that really casts, so you can put down, but like it's good for PvE and stuff, because especially raids, because you don't really have to like, you know, go against overpowered, you know, stuff. Basically. Okay, now that's done. We got all the rotation on the Arcane Mage. Now moving on to Fire Mage. Okay, now Fire Mage is oh my god. So Fire Mage is kind of like a more blasty, casty kind of spec, but not as much as, you know, Frost, which we're going into next. But we're first going over the talents. Now for fire, it's a little different. You're gonna want to go from more pyroblasts to do more damage and just upgrade your Pyroblast as much as you can to get it really, like, do a lot of damage and get a solid rotation with it. So first, 15 talent, you're gonna want to do Searing Touch. Now, Scorch deals 150 increased damage, and it's guaranteed critical strike when the target is below 30 health. And if you didn't know, 2 critical strikes in a row equals 1 free Pyroblast without the cast. And the cast is pretty big, 4 seconds, pretty big. And so, you really have 2 choices here, but the one that's really good is Searing Touch. You also have Pyromaniac, which casting Pyroblast or Flame Strike while Hot Streak is active has an 8% chance to instantly activate Hot Streak, but Searing Touch is, you know, better. Next, you only have one option here, which is Shimmer, because Blast Wave is kind of garbage, and maybe Blazing Soul. Yeah, it's garbage too. Shimmer is the only good one here. Now, 45, again, it's the same type of thing. I think it's for everything, which you're going to want to go for Rune of Power to get more of that damage for the Pyroblast out. Now, 60, you really only have one choice here, which is Flame On, which reduces the cooldown of Fire Blast by 2 seconds and increases the maximum number of charges by 1. And if you didn't know, Fire Blast already comes with 2 charges, so it's, first of all, it's going to make it 3. And the cooldown minus 2 seconds, which this is like one of your major abilities. If you don't have this ability, then you're not going to put out near as much damage input. This ability crits every single time, which would be extremely good for your Pyroblast technique. Nah, I'm gonna show you. Now, 75, it's about the same thing, but you're gonna want to go Frenetic Speed, which is casting Scorch increases your movement speed by 30 for 3 seconds. And you could also go for Ring of Frost, but I already explained that in Arcane. Now, 90. You kind of have 2 choices here. Conflagration Fireball applies Conflagration to the target, dealing an additional 80% fire damage over 8 seconds, so kind of like a dot, kind of, yeah. Enemies affected by either Conflagration or Ignite have a 10% chance to flare up and deal 72 damage to nearby enemies, which is that's what that guy did. And now the other choice you have is Living Bomb, which is another usual ability. It just doesn't do that much damage. It's kind of like a stun, but if you look on Shadow Priest, it's kind of like a stun from that like Time Bomb or whatever, but Living Bomb and takes a little more. Now, you're gonna want to go Meteor. That's just what you're gonna want to do. That's just what you're gonna want to do. But if you're like, no, I don't want to do Meteor, no, then you could also do Pyroclasm. Consuming Hot Streak has a 50% chance to make your next non-instant Pyroblast cast within 15 seconds deal 225 additional damage, max 2 stacks, but Meteor's better. Now, time for the playstyle. Now, this playstyle is going to be kind of fast and close up, so you're going to want to be pretty fast. So you're going to want to put down Rune of Power. Then you're going to want to keep on casting Fireball until it crits. Oh, it critted already. Then you want to cast Scourge, but right in the middle of Scourge you want to cast that. Then you want to go Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, then Scorch, then Pyroblast. And then you just basically just rinse and repeat. But since Combustion has a 2-minute cooldown, then you're just gonna want to try to do it until, you know, it just cooled down. You just want to keep on getting as many things as in there as you can. Meteor, Rune of Power, Fireball, and see if Scorch, please crit. Nah. That sucks. And then we can do that. Please Fireball crit. Yes! Let's go. Fire Mage is like one of my favorite types of mage. It's really active and really fast. And I like active and fast. That's really fun. You're gonna want to keep on doing this until you basically just have to try to put out as many pyroblasts as you can in the shortest amount of time and the most amount of damage you can. So yeah, come on, crit. Thank you. There we go. We got that, which is boom. I didn't want to crit. I thought that was gonna crit. Oh no, I thought that one crit. No, I just wasted one of my fire blasts. I put Rune of Power down. And so you see how my combustion is already off cooldown, but I'm not using it yet because I want to wait until all 3 of my fire blast charges are filled, so I do the most amount of damage. Okay, so now wait for fireball to crit. Alright, and then if you still have that, then you want to do Meteor, then Scorch, and then no! And basically, yeah, that's about it for fire. Fire Mage is so good. Now we're moving on to Frost Mage. Alright, now on to Frost Mage. Now, Frost Mage is kinda, I am not a fan of Frost Mage, but if you like ice, then you're probably gonna like this type of mage. If you like ice and freezing enemies, so you can freeze them. Okay, so first for the talents, you're gonna want to go for a Lonely Winter. It replaces the water elemental, but you can allow some of your water elemental. But Frostbite and Ice Lance and Flurry do 25 increased damage, which is your main abilities, which are really good. Now you're only going to want to use Shimmer because that's the only good thing. And again, you have Anti-Cancer, Flow, Mirror Image, and Rune of Power, which you're going to want to go with Rune of Power. Now you're going to want to go for Frozen Touch. Frostbite grants you Fingers of Frost and Brain Freeze 20% more often, which is your big boy damage. Is basically kind of like critical striking with Fire Mage, but it can make you cast Flurry and, you know, stuff like that way more often. And also Ice Lance as if the target was frozen, which when you hit a target when it's frozen with Ice Lance, it does 3 times the amount of damage. Now here you're gonna want to go with Ice Ward, 75 talent. Now Frost Nova has 2 charges, which is good because Frost Nova freezes the target in place, and then you can do Ice Lance, which does 3 times the amount of damage, and it's just insane. Now you're gonna want to go for Splitting Ice. Your Ice Lance and Icicles now deal 5 increased damage and hit secondary and nearby target for 8% of their damage. Now that's good. And your Ebon Bolt and Glacial Spike, which I don't have Ebon Bolt, but your Glacial Spike also hits a additional nearby enemy for 80% of its damage, which is astonishing. And now you're gonna want to go for Glacial Spike if you go for Splitting Ice, because Glacial Spike, first of all, it's just insane. And yeah, also you have another choice if you want, Ray of Frost, which is like an icy beam, but I would go for Glacial Spike. Now for this. Now, Frost Mage is about getting the most amount of flurries and glacial spikes and ice lances is basically getting Glacial Spike, Flurry, Glacial Spike and Flurry to come out as fast as possible and do the most damage, and Ice Lance to do the most damage. So what you're gonna want to do, you cast Icy Berry, then you go up close. You're gonna want to click Shimmer, go close, freeze the target, then go back. Now then you're gonna want to do Frostbolt, and that casted fast. Then you're gonna want to do that, and now that's ability. Then you're gonna want to keep on hitting him with a bunch of damage, and once that casts, then you're gonna want to go for Glacial Spike once you cast 5 Frostbolts, and that does insane amount of damage. And once you keep on doing that, you're gonna want to go for that. Boom, Ice Lance, Flurry, and you're gonna want to Shimmer, do that, go back. Then you're gonna want to do Frozen Orb, which is gonna do like a lot of damage constantly to him or her, whoever it is. And then you're gonna want to cast Flurry. You're gonna want to do that. Then you're gonna want to go for Glacial Spike once again, and then you're gonna want to do that at the same time, which will cast an amazing amount of damage. Now you're gonna want to get Cold Snap and Cold Snap out. Do that. Shimmer, Frost Nova, Shimmer back, and then Frostbolt, boom, do that. Glacial Spike, get that, hit that, then Flurry, and then you're gonna want to do Icy Veins. Accelerate your spellcasting for 20 seconds, preventing damage from delaying your spellcasts. Then go right there. Once you do that, then you're gonna want to cast that. And then you want to cast Rune of Power. Keep on doing its damage. Ice Lance. Go there. And then cast Glacial Spike. And then most of that. I damn it to do that. Just do that. Just in case that happens. And then Frostbolt, Frozen Orb. Then Ice Lance, and Rune of Power, Ice Lance, and Glacial Spike, Flurry, and that. And also, while you're casting your Frostbolt, you're also going to want to put out an Ice Lance at the same time, because it travels at the same speed, so you'll get like way more damage, basically having an overpowered type of and then casting Frostbolt over and over, and then wait for Brain Freeze to come out so we can use Flurry. Alright, and then do Frostbolt, Ice Lance, and then Flurry, Glacial Spike, and at the same time do Ice Lance. Nice. And that's basically how you do it. You just Shimmer up, freeze, go back, do that, Flurry, boom, 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 and go like there, then Glacial Spike, Rune of Power, boom, 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 freeze, go back. I don't have another Shimmer, so I'm gonna just make sure you stand in the Rune of Power. And you want to Shimmer, freeze, Cone of Cold while you're at it if you want. And then Frostbolt and Glacial Spike, and at the same time Ice Lance. And yeah, that's basically it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down anything that I did a good job. Maybe that I'm good. And let me know if you want to see more class reviews. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.